Hi everyone, I'm Michael with Bad Goblin Games, and in this video, I want to give you a brief overview of how movement works in Ages of Conflict. Units in Ages of Conflict move at one of three movement paces: ordinary, quick, or charge. Ordinary pace is a unit's slowest movement, and this is typically used when a unit is moving through rough ground, such as up hills or over obstacles. Most units have an ordinary pace of 5 centimeters. Units moving over smooth ground, such as roads and flat fields, can move up to their quick pace. A quick pace for most units is 10 centimeters. The fastest pace available is the charge pace. Now, the charge pace allows units to move up to 3 times their ordinary pace, or 15 centimeters. And units can only move at a charge pace over smooth ground. Now, terrain affects how far units can move. Units moving through or entering rough ground are limited to their ordinary pace. Rough ground is really any kind of ground that impedes movement. So on the battlefield, this might be like over a low rock wall or a fence, an unplowed field, maybe ground that has just kind of strewn with rocks, up a hill, or in this example here, we have a unit that is moving through a marsh. So all of those are examples of rough ground. Now, a unit that begins its turn in rough ground is limited to an ordinary pace. So for most units, when they start their movement, if they're in rough ground, the most they will be able to move is 5 centimeters. If we go back to our quick pace, ordinarily units moving at a quick pace can move up to 10 centimeters. Though a unit that's moving at a quick pace and encounters rough ground has their movement reduced. In our example here, our warriors, they start their turn moving at a quick pace, so they're going to start their turn with the intent of moving up to 10 centimeters. Though as they move, they encounter this marshy ground again. So when this happens, when they encounter that rough ground, their movement pace is immediately dropped to an ordinary pace. That means the most that unit can move this turn is their ordinary pace. If they've already moved 5 centimeters or more, then they stop moving when they hit that rough ground. If they've moved, for example, only 3 centimeters, then they can still move 2 more centimeters than that rough ground, because that would equal their their ordinary pace. So they start at a quick move, they encounter this marsh. When they encounter the marsh, their movement is immediately dropped to a maximum of their ordinary pace. So the final pace we have available is the charge pace, and this is the fastest pace available. And there are some pros and cons to moving at a charge pace. Now, the benefit is that if you move into hand combat against a smaller enemy unit, you may cause that enemy to flee the field. So this is a shock tactic. These are the knights on heavy horse charging into a mass of peasants or archers or some other unit that has a good chance of just running. So in this case, our warriors, they charge these Persian archers. And the Persian archers, because they are a smaller unit, they have to make a command check. If they fail that check, they will flee the field. On the downside, moving at a charge pace, this is not a pace that's intended for a unit to maintain for a long period of time. These are soldiers that are running, so some are going to be faster than others. They're carrying heavy weapons, heavy armor. There's a lot of adrenaline moving or just pumping through their systems. So maintaining that formation discipline for any kind of prolonged period of time while at this pace is a difficult task. So for this reason, any unit that moves at a charge pace and does not move into hand combat against an enemy must take a command check. If they fail that check, that unit becomes disorganized. Disorganized is a condition that affects how well the unit performs in hand combat. They're basically less effective. All right, so that covers the basics of movement. What I want to talk about now are formations. So Ages of Conflict allows different formations so that your units can better deal with certain situations. The most common formation is the line formation. Now this formation doesn't really grant you any bonuses, though by its nature it extends your flanks, so you're not quite easily as outflanked, and allows you to bring a good amount of firepower to bear. Next up is the column. Now the benefit of a column is that you're not quite as spread out. So if you are moving at that charge pace, you have a better possibility of maintaining the formation and not becoming disorganized. Next is the phalanx. So the phalanx is this is a rigid formation. This is an old formation, goes back to Mesopotamia. So this is a difficult formation to contend with in hand combat, though it's inflexible and does have some difficulty moving over rough ground. We have several defensive formations available, the first of which is the shield wall. So this is a basic defensive formation. The soldiers in the formation are essentially just creating a wall with their shields. So they place their shields in front of them. They overlap so that there's no gap in between them. And skirmishing, this is a basic function of battle. So your skirmishers, the difference here is that unlike the other formations in which the soldiers within the unit are really almost shoulder to shoulder, they're more spread out in the skirmishing formation. So they can move at a good rate of speed without losing the formation. This is the formation that you'd want to use to harass your enemy with arrows, slingshot, javelins. And it's also fast enough that you have a good chance of just evading if you were to be charged by the enemy. And the next formation we have available is another defensive formation. This is the square. Unlike the other formations that have a defined front, rear, and flanks, the square, for game purposes, really has a front on all four sides. So you're not going to be outflanked, or you're not going to be hit in the flank. You're not going to be hit in the rear. Every side is treated as a front. The final formation is the testudo. This is similar to the shield wall, though in addition to having just the wall in front of them, the soldiers are also placing their shields overhead. So this is really a formation that you would use to protect yourself against missile fire. Some of these formations are easily depicted in 6mm, while others require tokens. A good example is, say, a line formation in a shield wall. Miniature-wise, there's not really a way to tell the difference. So if I have a unit in a shield wall, I'm going to place a shield wall token next to that unit so that I can be reminded that I should be getting whatever bonuses come with that formation. All right, well, that really covers it for basics of movement with Ages of Conflict. I want to thank you for watching and invite you to join us on Facebook at Ages of Conflict. And there we could be happy to answer any questions, any kind of comments, suggestions, and you can always find the latest news on development and release dates. Thank you very much.